64 Fair Isle Avenue by Nicholas Leonard. Read by Naya Nomikou. Maui, Lemons and I were among the first people about to enter 64 Fair Isle Avenue since Ghost City Tours purchased it. It wasn't in Salem but in Marblehead, so it was kind of a big deal, or at least Ghost City Tours, which famously operated in Salem, made it a big deal. "How many of these people are paranormal investigators, do you think?" Lemons asked. She was looking around. Her hair was dyed red and her skin was pale, and she had some band t-shirt on, though I wasn't familiar with them. "We could be among the next dead in Lorraine Warren," Maui suggested. He was a buff man, many inches taller than Lemons and I, with his black hair tied back and the sides of his head shaved. His biceps were literally the size of our heads, and they had Polynesian tattoos on them from his family vacation when he was just 15. And me, Josh, a skinny fella, blonde, short hair, and eye bags from poor sleep schedule. We were quite a diverse trio. I didn't go to the gym with Maui, and I never went to a concert with Lemons. But we were all there for each other. Ever since my parents disowned me, we had been a tight trio. We had known each other since high school, but when that part of life dissipated, and when I was disowned, Lemons and Maui were there for me. If I was full of myself, I'd call them my Ron and Hermione. But I wasn't any Harry Potter. I wasn't any chosen one. I was just Josh. 64 Fair Isle Avenue was situated on a residential street a 5-minute drive away from Marblehead Beach, so the houses there were pretty nice. Stoically, 64 Fair Isle Avenue seemed guarded by 2 trees on the sidewalk, but their branches turned from it in weary shame. It was a red house with white window frames, giving it a barn quality, an idyllic house, liminal, something that would have been on House Hunters. It seemed to be 3 stories, with its 3rd story being an underdeveloped attic, which some people who stood there out front would probably end up having to crouch inside. It was interesting to see people look around Fair Isle Avenue, comparing number 64 to other houses, to houses that weren't empty. And I don't know why, but I felt some kind of guilt while everyone looked around. As though I could have shouted, "It's right here! This is the house we're looking for!" "Hey," Maui turned to face Lemons and I. "What's the backstory of this place?" Lemons shrugged, but I was too busy watching everyone else. "Did someone die in it or something?" Maui asked. This time it was me who shrugged, but Lemons chimed in. "That's what happens usually, right? How else could a house get haunted? A person's gotta die to become a spooky ghost." "Yeah, and usually gruesome deaths, right, Josh?" Maui added when he realized I was somewhat zoning out. "Usually," I murmured. A woman popped out of the crowd on the sidewalk, taking commandeering steps onto the front lawn of number 64. Probably mowed by Ghost City 2's grunt hours earlier. Nothing makes an empty house seem more haunted than it having the appearance of being lived in and up to par. She turned but couldn't shed the glow of the lampposts on its telephone pole, and she did indeed have a kind of hostess countenance to her. one that belongs to actresses who host award shows and not tour guides. She had a pixie cut, glasses, and was wearing a black parka and green khakis. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," she boomed with a voice not ample to boom, which made her sound so much like a teacher. A settling came down around everyone around Maui, Lemons, and I. Our tour guide continued. "I want to congratulate you on being the first to attend our tour into 64 Fair Isle Avenue. Yes, we are actually going inside the house, and you are the first to know the names of the previous tenants, the Erand family." And she pivoted into realtor mode. "Elias and Rachel Erand bought 64 Fair Isle Avenue in June 1995 for $135,000. Murmurs came over the crowd. "It is said that Mrs. Erand made her last trip to pay the mortgage in Salem 5 Bank in 2018, our tour guide explained. "Zillow estimates this house to be $759,000 today, though Ghost City Tours got a shared grant from both Salem and Marblehead to purchase it for the house's original price in 1995. Home buyers, don't not buy a house just because it's haunted. It could be a steal." Her voice was loud, and it made me aware of the other houses on the street, worried that she would wake up the people who actually called Fair Isle Avenue home. She switched back into tour guide mode. "Some of the activity house includes the feeling of eyes on the back of your neck. An employee of ours was carrying a Swifter upstairs into the attic when he turned around and saw Mrs. Rachel Erand swooping up the stairs behind him in a red dress. He said she had an aggravated look on her face and her arms outstretched as though she was about to help. An employee had to go and Swifter the attic the next morning. It is said that Mr. Elias Erand was your classic character of contradictions. He was very helpful to his neighbors, helping Mrs. Lattice across the street there fix her garage door not a couple of times." Everybody turned and looked across the street at a yellow house with a green roof and garage. Our tour guide continued. "Mr. Elias Erand was quick to aggravate, and he was often seen stomping up and down the street. But the causes of his aggravation wouldn't be known until later on, which we will get into when we are inside the house. It is proposed that he is behind the feeling of judgment inside the house, but the primary haunt within 64 Fair Isle Avenue is none other than the Errand's little boy, who was afflicted with many strange illnesses. We have experienced an incredible feeling of sadness when inside the house, feelings of disappointment, feelings of lost potential, misplaced potential, and feelings of guilt. All those feelings are attributed to the son of Rachel and Elias Erand." She paused and clapped her hands together once. "Now, who is ready to enter?" One excited woman raised her hand. "Me!" Our tour guide pointed at her and offered for her to enter first. She did, and the rest of us filed into number 64 floor at plane boarding speed. Maui, Lemons, and I remained together, and it felt good to cross the threshold with a man like Maui. I could sense an immediate change coming over Lemons. She started looking up at the ceiling, and her shoulders slouched a little forward. Our tour guide turned on a light, and all of us filled the living room, which had a fireplace, a coffee table, vases on a mantel, paintings of the beach, and 2 green armchairs. The walls were a creamy yellow, and it was comfy to be in a room which was at war between the orange glow of the living room light and the blue Massachusetts darkness outside. Massachusetts night crawling on the lawn. Our tour guide waited until everyone squished into the living room before speaking, now speaking at a normal volume. "We're now standing in what once was a room of repose for the three Erands. They used to put their Christmas tree right up in front of this window, and the errand boy would line up his new toys right in front of the fireplace while Mrs. Erand watched and while Mr. Erand recovered from having to wake up so early." A giggling came over our crowd. She continued, "It is in this room that it is said that the errand boy had his first epileptic fit on Christmas morning of 2004. Mr. Erand rushed their son to the hospital while Rachel had to stay behind and watch the fire. This was when the errand boy was diagnosed with epilepsy." "Did he die?" someone spoke up from the crowd. Our tour guide lifted a finger and said, "We haven't quite gotten to that part yet. Now, let us convene into the dining room." We did. The dining room had green walls and dark wooden chairs. The table was set with silverware, too silver for a middle-class family, and this room had a heavy air in it, as though the table remembered some tense moments. I felt as though I had eaten there before, and had been between the disgruntledness of Elias and the worry of Rachel. I blinked the thought away, but all I could picture was Elias cutting pot roast and splattering mashed potatoes onto his plate, and picture a scared little boy seated between his mother and father as the house went from happy to sad, renovated by the emotions of humankind. A father who worked the screwdriver while his son held the screws, scared to tell him about the screw he lost and couldn't find. "This is where the Erands had dinners, obviously, and not a couple breakfasts," our tour guide explained. "This was Elias's seat at the head of the table, and Rachel always sat with her back to the living room, and their son sat in between them. It is said that he was a very picky eater, and this used to aggravate his parents. Rachel used to complain that Elias overcooked whatever chicken they were having, and somehow always undercooked whatever steak they were having, and never helped that their son requested fluffernutters 2 bites into the meal. We have to skip ahead a little to 2012. It is said that the errand boy had a difficult time with transitioning, and his change from elementary school to middle school was not easy on him or the family. He used to go and see the school nurse almost every morning in the first few weeks of 6th grade, and ask them to call Elias so he could come and take him home. Well, Elias started having enough of this, and he and Rachel started having to put in the effort to push their son into school. Eventually their son adjusted, but September and October 2012 was a difficult time for the Erand family, and even though their son adjusted to middle school, that didn't mean he performed swimmingly in school. He was often sent to his headmaster for failing to complete homework and tests. It is said that he wouldn't even write his name on the papers. Rachel and Elias learned from his teachers during parent-teacher conferences that their son would just freeze up whenever some assignment was put down in front of him. This greatly disrupted Elias's view of who his son was supposed to become, and it was when they started wondering if they should get their son to a psychologist. "Sounds like a normal kid," I whispered to Lemons. "Yeah, right," she agreed in a whisper. "If you ask me, he's kind of brave for refusing to do his schoolwork." Our tour guide continued. Now, the errand boy had excellent comprehension skills. He was an avid reader, but he refused to read for school. Rachel used to set the timer on the kitchen microwave when he had to read Tom Sawyer in 7th grade, and it is said that he barely even turned a page in 15 minutes, but while reading for his own enjoyment, it is said that he could complete a 500-page novel in a week. Going back a little, he finished Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire in just 2 weeks when he was in 3rd grade. And if there's any fans of the Harry Potter series here, then you know that that is a very big book. An air of agreement and of being impressed came over everyone around me, but I found it relatively normal. Wasn't it normal and very human for a child to fall into a book? I looked around. How many of these people read, anyway? I looked back at our tour guide. I'll give to those who are interested the time to walk around in the kitchen for a little while, but after that we're going to move upstairs where the Erands had their bedrooms, our tour guide said. Maui and Lemon went into the kitchen while I was left behind, with a couple of stragglers in the dining room. They were admiring the silverware, which shined too gleamingly in a room with green walls, and I just stared at the stairs. I got separated from Lemons and Maui, but managed to catch up with them when the tour group started toothpasting out into the 2nd floor hallway. Be careful on the stairs, our tour guide explained while people were still ascending. Rachel Erand has been known to get a little handsy on the stairs for whatever reason. The hallway was dark, relying on light from inside a bathroom and 2 bedrooms. Creeping out from one of the bedroom doors, a panel of light found its dimension on the wall and illuminated the picture of a chubby but cheerful toddler on the wall. He was in a maroon sweater vest with a sky blue backdrop behind him. His baby teeth were quite visible, and it was an adorable juxtaposition between his tiny teeth and pudgy cheeks. His hair, obviously not combed by himself, was so blonde that it was almost silver. The feeling in the hallway was unanimous. Everyone was captivated by the picture of the little boy. Had any ghosts stepped out of the bedrooms or bathroom? Had any of the doors slammed shut? Had any light flickered? Nothing could have compared to what feelings that picture exuded. It was not a toddler, but a fossil, something gone, something that used to be happy. A little boy knitted by his parents in a woolly sweater vest, his hair so finely combed. "Everybody here?" our tour guide asked. Nobody answered, so she directed her hand towards the picture of the toddler. "We can see here a picture of the errand boy taken circa 2003. Back to where we left off, Elias started blaming his son's shortcomings at school on himself and developed a complex. He started believing he was failing as a father and projected this by calling his son lazy." A lady from within our group gasped one of those deflated exhales usually revered for puppies. Our tour guide continued. "There is really no way of knowing how the errand boy reacted to this, but one can imagine he was already having a hard enough time not being able to perform like the other kids." "What was his name?" a lady asked, and our tour guide shook her head, apologizing. "Unfortunately, Ghost City Tours is not at liberty to disclose that." A man interrupted her. "But do you know it?" "I do, but out of respect I will not be saying it tonight," she responded and went on. "Things only got worse come high school. Marblehead public school systems simply just pushed him along grade after grade, and eventually it came time for the errand boy to start considering a part-time job. At first, he was very perceptive to the idea, but he started having trouble completing his tasks down at the Tedesco Country Club, where he worked as golf cart attendant. It is said one of the managers had to come in and park all the carts for him one night 30 minutes after the allotted time estimated for him to get all the carts washed and inside the garage. We all looked at the picture of the boy, and he smiled obliviously back at us. I'll give you all some time to walk through the bedrooms, and the restroom is in order for those of you who need it, she said. People started dispersing, with one man trying to get a premature peek up the stairs to the third floor, but was aware of our tour guide's watchful eye. I regrouped with Maui and Lemons, in the bedroom that once belonged to Rachel and Elias. There was a vanity with a great big mirror, and left behind remnants of the Catholic faith. Our tour guide came in, explaining when she saw everyone at the vanity. That picture in the hallway is the only photograph that Ghost City Tours was able to apprehend. The Erands took most of their photographs with them when they evacuated the house. Did they die? Someone asked, to which she said, We'll get to that upstairs. What do you think so far? Picking up any haunted vibes? Lemons asked. Not really, Maui answered, surveying the ceiling, then surveying the bed, expertly made. What about you, Josh? She asked me. Kinda, I said. I'm getting kinda sad vibes. Yeah, this place is a bummer, Maui agreed. Minutes later, we were allowed upstairs into the attic of 64 Fair Isle Avenue. It was indeed an oppressive staircase. Watch your step. Halt onto the railing, please, our tour guide said, and she sounded genuinely concerned. The attic was the least furnished area we had been in so far. Its ceiling came down in 2 angles, suggesting we were standing right beneath the gable. The rafters were unsanded beams of wood, and the ceilings seemed like the deep rib cage of the house, the fossil of a whale made of wood. There were grey plastic bins cluttered underneath the shorter angles of the room, a black garbage bag that was obviously covering a Christmas tree, and 2 bikes that Rachel and Elias must have rode when they were newlyweds, before their son came along. We are now inside the attic of number 64, our tour guide said, after making sure everybody had filed into the attic. She closed the door to the staircase behind her, hand protectively on the doorknob. There was something glimmering in her eyes, some forecast, and I knew she was about to reach the pinnacle of the Erand story or something. It is said, she used a lot of emphasis, that this is the most active area of the house, and we at Ghost City Tours are still working out the details as to why that might be. Not everything is recorded, obviously, and the more nefarious things go unrecorded. That is until you get some sleuths like us who know just where to look. Has anybody seen the television series on the Travel Channel, Kindred Spirits? Some people raised their hands. Amy and Adam are set to visit this house next month, and they agreed to share their findings with us directly after their week-long investigation, our tour guide explained. Yo, anybody hear that? Some man asked. I watched an old lady's eyes bug out. I heard it, she said. Our tour guide expressed a teasing smile. That might be Mrs. Rachel Erand coming up the stairs. How deliberately she put up a finger to ask, Does anyone want to see if she would like to join us? People started shuffling closer to their partners, and those who came alone started looking around like we were in school and about to have to pick partners for a group project, something of which I always hated. I sidestepped closer to Maui, and so did Lemons. The 3 of us were standing by the wrapped-up Christmas tree. We watched our tour guide put her hand back on the doorknob of the staircase door. How devious she looked. Excited, mischievous. There was not the sound of footsteps, but the sound of something mechanical. Our tour guide started talking while something stopped behind the door. For noise ceasing is a noise after all. It is said that the errand boy used to have difficulty sleeping without stress from school and his job at the Tedesco Country Club, and on those nights he used to come upstairs to ruminate in the attic. Against the better judgment of Elias, who believed they had babied their boy far too much, Rachel used to sneak out of bed and come up here to console her son. Surrounding houses on Fair Isle Avenue report seeing a light coming from the attic on some nights, and they always knew that the errand boy was up, and they also knew that his good mother was up here doing what mothers do and consoling him. The door rattled, but it was obviously our tour guide manipulating it, shaking the door herself. It seems as though she has returned to console her son. She must have mistaken someone in this very room for him. Would any young man like to step forward and let Mrs. Rachel Erand in? Lemons pushed me out of the crowd. I stumbled forward. How alert I felt making eye contact with our tour guide. She reminded me of a teacher. I gulped. Would you like to do the honors, young man? Sure, I forced myself to say. She stepped back and the door seemed so still. I stepped forward. I touched the doorknob, felt my arms shaking, and turned it and opened up the door. Leaning forward, the figurehead on a bowsprit of a ship, an animatronic of my mother, swooped towards me with open mannequin arms. Her face was beautiful, like I remembered as a child, but so stale and plastic now. She was in a red dress. She had come swooping down from some contraption in the ceiling of the staircase. I jittered back. My son! Her animatronic groaned with a windy robotic voice. I froze. I was frozen. I felt like I was being electrocuted. It was her. It was my mom, coming to comfort me again. Mom. My mom. I ducked and ran out into the staircase, crouching and speeding the stairs. I ignored Lemons shouting my name. I ignored the gasps. I passed my baby picture on the wall in the second-floor hallway. Even though they were both still very much alive, I felt my father and mother's ghosts chasing me down the hall. I was crying. I was crying, gritting my teeth, mucus probably bubbling in my nose like it used to when I was 12. I ran through the kitchen and dining room, past the table I used to sit at while staring at my blank math homework, and I hurried out of the house. I stumbled onto the front lawn, running, haunted by the picture of myself on the second floor. When I broke out into the street, I looked over my shoulder and saw the light being emitted from an attic window. And I wheezed in a heavy, wet sob as I remembered how my mother used to cradle me, used to hold my head, used to tell me that it wasn't my fault.